cancer. At 14, Arshia found herself facing that reality. In this talk, she shares how a life-changing from diagnosis transformed her from a patient into an innovator, working to make early breast cancer detection more accessible to others.
Imagine just starting high school. Your biggest worries should be homework, extracurricular activities, friends, or maybe an upcoming test. Now imagine sitting in a hospital waiting room, waiting to find out if a lump in your body could be cancer. I never imagined that would be my story, but it was. My name is Arshia Gutek, and I'm a junior at Dougherty Valley High School. And during the end of my freshman year and the beginning of my sophomore year, I faced something I never expected, a rare form of breast tumor called an intraductal papilloma, otherwise known as stage 0 breast cancer. This experience changed my life forever. But today, I want to share a story not just about illness, but about fear, resilience, research, and hope. But before I share my story, let's understand what breast cancer actually is. Breast cancer occurs when the cells in your breast begin to grow uncontrollably and form a tumor. These tumors can sometimes spread to other parts of the body if not detected early. It is currently the most commonly diagnosed cancer among women. And each year, nearly 2 million women are diagnosed with breast cancer globally, and almost 700,000 die from breast cancer. And stats show that 1 in 8 women will eventually develop breast cancer in their lifetime. Now you may think this is a disease limited to only older adults, but the reality is changing. Research has shown that diagnoses for women aged 20 to 30 has increased significantly in the past few decades. And although breast cancer in teenagers is rare, about 1 case per millions of girls aged 15 to 19, it still happens. And I know that because it happened to me. During the end of my freshman year in high school, I noticed something unusual, a small lump. I didn't know what it was, and so at first, I didn't think much of it. After all, I was young, healthy, and extremely active. I swam regularly. I played on my school's water polo team. I trained seriously in Indian classical dance. I followed what most people would consider a pretty healthy lifestyle. I rarely ate junk food. I didn't like sweets, and believe it or not, I didn't even like chocolate, which is practically unheard of for a kid. But good eating habits and a healthy lifestyle doesn't guarantee you immunity from all diseases, because eventually I was diagnosed with an intraductal papilloma, or as the doctors put it, stage 0 breast cancer. Suddenly, my life changed. Instead of thinking about homework, science projects, water polo practices, or dance rehearsals, I was thinking about doctor's appointments. And so over the next few months, my life became filled with doctor visits for ultrasounds, consultations with oncologists, tests, and more tests, and finally, surgeries. And throughout this whole process, it was so slow, it was painful, and it was emotionally taxing. For me, it took at least 2 weeks to book an ultrasound. And then it took another 1 to 2 weeks for the radiologist to take a look at the ultrasound scan and provide a report. Nearly 4 weeks of waiting and uncertainty for every ultrasound. 4 weeks of asking myself the same questions over and over again. What if it's cancer? What if it spreads? How will my life change? Those couple weeks were longer than any months in my life. And although the doctors were taking care of the physical aspect of my health, no one really talked about the mental impact. Before all this happened, my life revolved around 2 things I loved deeply: water polo and Indian classical dance. my water polo games and practices, and as one of the captains for my team, I felt like I was consistently letting down my teammates and my coaches, and I couldn't even tell them why. And I've been learning Odissi, an Indian classical dance form, since I was 5 years old. But during my treatment, I had to miss my training, and I had to miss countless opportunities to perform on national and international stages. I was invited to a very prestigious international dance festival where gurus from all around the world flew in to perform. And as a dancer, that's incredibly special. But I couldn't go. I was recovering from surgery. And while my friends prepared for performances, competitions, games, I was stuck in my room. At night, I had nightmares. I kept asking myself the same question over and over again. What if? After everything was done, all the procedures, all the surgeries, the doctors told me one thing, that I was lucky I got diagnosed early. Lucky? Yes. Yes, I was lucky. Lucky because my parents listened to what I was going through and realized how severe it was. Lucky because I had timely access to the best medical facilities in the Bay Area. But not everybody can get that lucky. Maybe a girl can't express how she's feeling, or she feels weird talking about it, or her parents don't understand how severe it is, or maybe she might not have the best medical facilities nearby so they can diagnose it early. We all know that early detection is the key to fighting cancer. So why can't a teenage girl like me have that chance of detecting her cancer early? Because health insurance in the US doesn't cover these tests today. Why should my fate depend completely on health insurance? Why isn't there something more simple, accessible, affordable, yet accurate so I can diagnose my health, my breast health at home? Today, I'm developing something that I wish had existed when I was going through my diagnosis. Something that could just fit in your hands. Something called a portable handheld ultrasound device. A device that teenagers can use to scan their breast health at home. A device that can detect even the smallest of lumps and tissue abnormalities. A device that alerts its user of something suspicious and tells them to get to the doctor immediately. And even though this device looks promising for early testing, detecting even the smallest of lumps in a teenager's body can be extremely difficult because of how small they are. So, I had two options. One was to improve the device itself, which defeats the purpose of its affordability. Or two, enhance the detection outside of the device's hardware. So, I turned to research, and I developed a separate software solution using machine learning models to analyze the ultrasound scans and detect these lumps. And this excites me, because as someone who had recently just been a patient, this was incredibly personal, because I was no longer just fighting the disease. I was helping actively prevent it. With my research work and my device combined, we could reduce the waiting time, reduce the anxiety, but most importantly, we could detect cancer earlier. Because when it comes to cancer, time saves lives. Today, I stand here in front of you not just as a survivor, but as someone whose life recently changed with a challenge that turned to purpose. I was recently a patient at a hospital waiting room, but today, I'm now someone who is actively working to help change how this disease is detected. And if I was a high schooler who was nervously waiting for these ultrasound scans, is now working to change how detection is, Imagine what all of us could do together. Because sometimes the hardest moments in your life can become the beginning of something powerful. So imagine what all of us could do together. Because the future of health, innovation, and hope may be sitting in our classrooms today. Thank you.